New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And you know that to be true. No place I'd rather be than with you this Sunday evening. Welcome, welcome. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A podcast dedicated to you, to your voice, your truth, your authenticity. On this show, we have one overarching goal, and that is to help you have the highest regard for yourself. Help you live from a place of genuine self-respect and self-love, and make yourself a priority in your own life. Meet me here each week for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we live life in this manner, we naturally and effortlessly, and yes, organically, have more room, more generosity, and more love for one another. And dear listeners, wide receivers, when have we needed love more than this very day? So, welcome. We are live, as you know, and I invite you, those of you who have access to the chat, I invite you to interact with me. All questions, comments, points of view are welcome, as long as they fall within the scope of what I can handle and address in the time allotted and in this particular format. So please, let's co-create another great conversation. I look forward to hearing from you. I also want to remind you that if you find yourself struggling with something that really has a grip on you and you haven't been able to shake it or work it through, please don't go it alone. There is plenty of good help available to you. I invite you to reach out and get that help. Let someone support you. Let someone accompany you through your journey, and let somebody help you feel better. Okay? If there's anything I can do, if I can help you with a referral, please just contact me. Drop me a line at Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. That's Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. Let me know what you need, and I will do my best to help you out. The other thing is the algorithm. Please, 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 if you enjoy the content on tonight's show, if you're a regular listener and have been, learning some things, and if you find the content useful, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. You know how it goes. That keeps the algorithm happy, and when the algorithm is happy, it pumps the show out to more and more people. So let's all spread the word. Like, subscribe, share. Okay. So let's dive right in. You know, the events going on in the world, I talked about them more in depth last week. We're going to take a different tact, but you know, the world is the world, right? And everything we talk about here on Who Do You Think You Are is done so with the backdrop of what's going on in the world and how each of us, how you and how I can make a worthwhile contribution. Starting out, of course, by doing no harm and not adding to the difficulties if we possibly can. And actually, each of us being a light in what at times looks like a very dark world. So, in order to be beacons of light, we have to be clear-headed. And as I talked about last time, you know, a mind that is foggy or detached or avoidant or hysterical, histrionic, passive is not going to be able to shed any light on the world. So first and foremost, as beacons, we need to be clear-headed, level-headed. We have to get hold of ourselves, and we have to be the best version of ourselves. And that is really what this show is all about tonight. No different. You know, we all want to do better. We all want to be better. We all want to feel better. And there isn't a therapist out there, I don't think, who doesn't want their clients to feel better in the quickest way possible, right? I think the days of traditional psychotherapy, though it's still performed today, but I think you know, we don't have the time that we used to have to sort of meander through the musings of our mind. That used to be a luxury. But things being what they are, it's incumbent on each of us, I think, to get with it and be these clear-headed beacons of light as quickly as we can. Frankly, we do not have time to waste. So tonight we're going to talk about this thing that we all want, which is to be better, have a better life. But in order to have a better life, we have to be better people. Now, better people, according to what metric? In other words, what constitutes better? Well, for many, and many of the people who call me to work with me, initially come with the hope that I will help them be better, get better, at some of the very things that got them stuck to begin with. In other words, they want help perfecting their masks. And may I say, they quickly find out that that's not what we do in psychotherapy. We do not perfect the masks. If anything, we look beneath them because the best version of ourselves lies not in our facade, but in our authenticity. So tonight's talk is about the relationship we have with ourselves and our worth, our value. And I submit to you that self-worth is not something we earn. It's not something we earn. It's something we remember. It's something we remember. And I'm going to be offering a few things. I believe I have five points or aspects that may be helpful to you. These are things I've learned from my work with my clients, my own research, and my own life. So I'll share them with you. The first one is this notion of inadequacy, that we're not enough somehow. We're not enough, just, you know, straight out of the gate without any trimmings, just who we are is somehow fundamentally flawed, somehow fundamentally inadequate. And so shame creates a story that we are not good enough. Now, as I was preparing to come on tonight, when I wrote that, what immediately came to mind was how my own, I would have never used the word shame, but I believe it applies, how my own story of, well, inadequacy, I don't even like to say it, but it's true, got going. And I'll tell you briefly because I think some of you may relate to this. And I can see it as clearly as if it happened this morning. I was in the 3rd grade and getting out of school, Catholic school. It seemed that the moms, I don't know if there were any dads back in those days, but the moms seemed to all get out of the car to greet their children, you know, take the lunchbox, give them a hug, and they'd go back to the car. And I was very struck that my mom never got out of the car. So I'd get in the car and I think she would start talking about her day, her business. And I remember consciously having this went through my head just as clear as day. I remember thinking to myself, those hugs that the other kids are getting, those are for the wimpy kids. I don't need those hugs. And furthermore, I don't think I used the word furthermore, but my mom is too important to give those hugs. My mom is too important to get out of the car. She has things to do. I think my mother was the only mom who worked outside the home. I think. So I felt, well, whatever I felt, I realized later on, but at the time I made that little daily occurrence. Other moms got out of the car, but my mom didn't. I rationalized it into a positive thing. My mom is too busy, too important to do that, and I don't need that. And in fact, the kids who did, I labeled as wimpy kids. Can you imagine? And then I remember, if my early years would flash before me, I would say the caption read, "Don't ever be wimpy. Don't ever be wimpy." It's probably why I was led in the direction of becoming a psychotherapist, because I think on some level, I mean, this has changed, of course, but on some level, I could help the wimpy kids because I was somehow above it. So I made myself superior. I put myself in the role of helper, and I denied any neediness I had around being in the 3rd grade and having my mom get out of the car and hug me. So that was the beginning of my shame story. Now, when you're a child who does that sort of thing, what happens is, and can anybody relate to this? You spend the rest of your life, unless and until you catch yourself doing this and you go in and do the work to dismantle this belief system. I spent my life compensating for having needs. I constructed a mask and a facade that said, not only don't I need anyone, but my needs are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of, I don't even know what word to use. There's something to be embarrassed by. And strength, being self-contained, self-reliant, self-sufficient, these were strengths that I lived by. So I went about my life, and my interactions were almost transactional. Transactional in the way that if I did something for someone, or if I behaved in a certain way or conducted myself as that tough 3rd grader, then people would like me. People would respect me. I would be validated and complimented for not who I was, but how I behaved. And that got me further and further from my true self. Further and further from my true self. And I'm wondering if anyone listening can relate. Is this your story too? You know, Brene Brown, she single-handedly put shame on the map. She popularized and did years of research to explain the phenomenon that actually psychotherapists have known for decades, that when we have a childhood experience that gives us the message, or we infer we're as lovable as we are, fill in the blanks, well-behaved, smart, cooperative, quiet, don't rock the boat, helpful. Getting that message and internalizing it just sets us up to become adults who live according to that philosophy. And what happens is, and you can imagine, it creates a lot of inner tension and a lot of anxiety. Why? Because as long as I'm performing and as long as my masks are intact, then all is well, right? All is well. I am succeeding at perfecting the image, the persona that I want to put out in the world. I'm mastering the way in which I want people to think of me. Authenticity be damned. You don't even know about authenticity when you live like that, as I have, and I suspect many, many people live this way. And then what happens is, because it doesn't stop there, what happens is when you treat yourself that way, and I say treat yourself because this comes under and is part and parcel of the relationship we have with ourselves. We have a relationship with ourselves the way we have a relationship with anyone else. There are things we like about ourselves, things we don't like. There are things we love, and there are things we abhor about ourselves. And in my work with clients, what I hear all the time is the four-letter word that so many people use, and that is need. I don't want to need anyone. I hate that I'm needy. I despise that. So I'm just going to hide it. And again, perfect the mask. But then what happens, you know, when everything goes well, all is good with life. But when there's a crack in the facade, or when you feel rejected, or when you miss the deadline, or you say something that you feel was, you know, stupid in the meeting, then what happens? We tend to beat ourselves up. We tend to berate ourselves. We tend to not only chastise ourselves, but then we think we can self-correct by beating ourselves up. So those of us who may be invested in the belief that we can hate ourselves into being better people, we can berate ourselves, demand ourselves, ultimatum ourselves, coerce ourselves into being better people, better meaning more lovable, more pleasing. Well, as I've asked myself so many times, how's that going? How does that work? Right? I talk about these concepts in my book, Unmasked, Discover the Hidden Power of Your True Self. And every word of that title is deliberate. Discover. Self-worth is not earned. It's something you remember. It's something you uncover within yourself. So discover the hidden power. Your authenticity is where your power lies. I'll get into that more. Of your true self, not your false self, not your idealized self, but your true self. So if you're interested in these concepts, and I hope you are, go to Amazon, or really wherever books are sold. Support your local bookstore if you possibly can, but it's also available on Amazon. So And if you get the book, let me know what you think. So we tend to seek external validators through all the means that we know, through the credentials, through the grades, through the money, through the status, any way we can think of to set ourselves apart and trick ourselves, try to outfox ourselves into getting in touch with who we really are, because we feel that there are parts of who we really are that are shame-worthy, not value-worthy, right? So I notice some people are in the chat. I'm going to get to you in just a moment. So in this transactional way of being, if I do this, you're going to think that of me. We confuse achievement for worthiness and approval for being loved, right? And so even if we understand this concept intellectually, and many of us do, we still live this way. We still live this way. And that's because those early lessons that we learned became the scaffolding, if you will, around which our personality was developed. So these beliefs are pretty entrenched if left to their own, to their own devices. But if we use our executive reasoning to work with ourselves, to have a kinder, more compassionate relationship with ourselves, a true understanding, we can do much more than intellectually understand this concept. We can begin to undo it. Undo it. Okay? I hope you're with me. So I said there were 5 things. Let me go through a couple more. Perfectionism, which is an outgrowth of inadequacy much of the time, perfectionism is just another facade. It's just another mask disguised as achievement. Now, perfectionists, of course, by definition, they do a good job. Many employers want perfectionists on their team. You want your cardiologist to be a perfectionist. You want your carpenter to be a perfectionist. Okay? I mean, these things go without saying. But if in the deepest parts of ourselves, in our deep, deep psyche, if we believe that we only qualify for love if we do things perfectly, unreasonable, unrealistic as that is, but we die trying, that is to say, our spirit dies trying, then really what it is chasing the pursuit of love me because I do this thing well. It's 180 degrees from take me or leave me. I'm going to be true to who I am. Now, that's easier said than done because we all need to belong. We are hardwired to belong. Our tribal instincts are deeply, deeply embedded in being a human being. If we were kicked out of the tribe, we would die because everyone in the tribe had a certain job that made the collective survive. So we are here today, you and I, because our ancestors were very vigilant and did what they had to do to belong. But if we are going to be self-actualized human beings, if we want to live in a more relaxed state, and when I say relaxed, you can substitute the word integrated state, where I'm more concerned with being authentic. Yes, of course, I'm interested in feedback. Yes, of course, I'm interested in having meaningful exchanges with people. Yes, I'm interested in taking in new information so that I can grow. This is not to say you're not interested in what people have to say to you, even about you. But when our primary stance is rooted in authenticity and truth, then, dear listeners, I think we really are onto something. And then we have the luxury of letting go of keeping score of who likes us because we're this way or that way. And so we have to polish our masks. We let go of that, and we settle into and surrender into, in the most empowering of ways, who we truly are at core. So this is a mouthful. I think it's a good time to take a short break, digest this, and when I come back, I'll go to the chat. I see there are quite a few comments. I can't wait to see what they are, and I'll continue with my list of 5 things that have to do with you can't hate yourself into being a better person. So stay with me. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach. Get yourself something to drink, take a break, stretch. We'll be right back. Stay with me.
Well, hello there. This is Dr. Sydney Steen. I am the senior minister and spiritual leader of the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. We are a oneness center for spiritual living. And I just want to invite you to something that I think is really, really special. In October, from the 6th to the 10th, at Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri, the affiliated New Thought Network will be hosting the most wonderful retreat. This will serve your soul. It will lift your heart. And oh my goodness, I want to call it an advance. So come hear wonderful speakers like Martha Creek, Sonny Cantrell, and the music will be off the hook with Ricky Byers. There will be so much there to support your soul. I hope that you will join us. You can go to antn.org. That's antn.org. You can get all the information. You can sign up. You can use a credit card, and it is safe and secure, and I hope to see you there. Have a blessed day.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? a show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And welcome back. If you're just joining me, I'm Catherine Duca, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? And we are in the middle of a conversation about hating ourselves into becoming better people. Hating ourselves into becoming better people. Being stern with ourselves. Giving ourselves ultimatum. Using shame as a motivator. And I submit to you that, and you already know this, that does not work. It works beautifully at getting your fight and flight going, because when you weaponize a part of yourself, when you weaponize shame and use it to prod you into improving something or changing something, imagine if somebody else treated you that way. You would immediately bristle. You would pounce. You would, yell at that person. You would go into either fight, which is that behavior, or flight, which is to retreat, withdraw, clam up, get quiet, go silent, numb out what you were experiencing to begin with, numb the emotion. So this is not helpful. So with that, I'll go to the chat. I see we have quite a few comments. Let's see. Tony, sorry I'm late. Tony, no sorries. Just glad you're here. Hop on whenever you can. Good to see you. Janine, what jumps out at me is how you said once you got in the car, your mom began talking about her day rather than asking about yours. Well, that's true, actually. So you were primed to be a listener from the outset. Many can relate. Yeah. You want to know something? I never really put that together. That may be where I got my start, that my role was to be a listener. Thanks, Janine. Something so obvious to you, but not obvious to me after all these years. I know that in retrospect, I felt kind of invisible, or I felt that my needs didn't matter, because if they did, she would ask me about them. But I didn't quite get that piece. I think that's very interesting. Thank you. Thanks very much. Michelle, thank God for Brene Brown's work. Yes. Love how she explains through her own vulnerability about feelings of shame. I've learned and have healed in many ways by immersing myself in her teachings. Yeah, she put vulnerability on the map, and she's the one who really brought vulnerability into the mainstream and says so powerfully that vulnerability is not a weakness. I repeat and repeat and repeat. Vulnerability is not a weakness. I tell you, I don't think a day goes by that a client doesn't tell me in some way, shape, or form that they don't do vulnerability, or they're petrified of becoming vulnerable. They steel themselves because they got the message that it means they're weak. They're, they don't have a backbone. Well, Brene Brown tells us that vulnerability is our backbone, because vulnerability means willingness to touch the truth of our experience. And what sounds more courageous to you? To be able to touch the truth and respect the reality of our past, or perpetually run from it vis-a-vis these masks and layers of armor, right? The answer is obvious. It's more courageous to touch our truths. Now, it can be difficult. It can be, disarming. And I think it's hard to do alone. This is what I really want to emphasize. I'll cut to number 5 of the 5 things I talked about because I think it has a place. Foundational self-worth is built on connection. I'm jumping to that because being talked out of our self-worth and our value happened vis-a-vis a relationship. Our caregivers, my mom, totally unknowingly, totally unwittingly, she would never have wanted to do that. She would never have wanted to do that. And Mom, if you're listening, it's okay. It's all okay. I understand it now, and it's okay. You know, the very belief or problem that resulted from an interaction, like my mom not getting out of the car and what I made that mean, can only be healed by another interaction. That's why I think this work is better done. And by better done, I think I mean like exclamation point, with another person whom you can trust, with another person who lets you know they want to see you, they want to hear you. That's the problem that was created by an interaction can only be healed by an interaction. So I reiterate, don't go it alone. You know, if you need to up-level your self-worth, if you need to discover it, if you need to remember it, call someone who can show you where it's hiding. It's hiding beneath all the layers of the things you thought were tickets to being loved and lovable. And we have that backwards. So thanks again, Janine. And thanks, Michelle. Pardon me. Dawn, hi there. Healing is releasing self-judgment, forgiveness, accepting, and loving yourself. Healing is releasing self-judgment, forgiveness, accepting, and loving yourself. Having compassion for your child self and the adult self you ended up becoming. We can't love ourselves without self-forgiveness. Absolutely, positively, 1000%. And something that I call in my book compassionate recognition. Compassionate recognition. What is that? Well, it's me going back over those home movies of standing outside of Our Lady of Mount Carmel School, seeing all the moms give all the hugs, and me doing what I said I did with that. It's me stopping that movie right there, freeze frame, and having not only compassion for my young self, yes, of course, but compassionate recognition, understanding why I did what I did, understanding that I had no choice because she was my mom. And, you know, if she set that tone, you know, she was larger than life. She was the one I went to. She was the one who was always right. Your mom is always right when you're in the 3rd grade. And your dad, your caregivers, your teachers, they're always right. And so if somebody's wrong, it's got to be me. So I stop that tape. I look at my young self getting in the car like a good girl with my own lunchbox, watching the other kids get their hugs and their moms look so happy to see them. And really, and I could feel it now, I tell you the truth, feeling that feeling of ache, that little, I have a sensation around my heart, that feeling of longing. I quickly flipped it into a positive, I really inflated my importance and my mother's importance. But underneath that very tender, raw part of me, I was a little girl who needed her mom to get out of the car and show that she was excited, because I had been thinking of her all day. She worked right down the street, and I would daydream. Gee, I hope she's thinking about me like I'm thinking about her. But when I got in the car and she talked about her difficulty meeting payroll that day, and I became a good little listener, there's no room for me here. I didn't say those words. I just fell into place. I just fell into place. I became a good soldier, which is no pun intended. My mom was in the Army. She met my dad. She was a captain, and I became a good little soldier, you know? Yes, ma'am, as you wish. And I did that actually most of my life. That's how powerful this stuff is. So, Michelle, thank you. You go on to say, for many years, I was lost in the pursuit of perfectionism. It held me up from completion in many areas of my life. It can only do that because perfectionism takes time. And just when you think you're there, the goalpost moves out even further and you invest more time. And before you know it, you say, the hell with it. The hell with it. And that's called self-sabotage. Inadvertent, backdoor self-sabotage. Acknowledging that I was good enough, had always been, was a liberation. That's right. I was always good enough. You were always good enough. Everyone on this chat, everyone listening, even the producer of this show, Reverend Michael Mangus, I know, has always been good enough because children are good enough. Full stop, end of story, close the book. But when we get another message, we chase the thing we think is going to make our mother get out of the car. We chase the thing that we think is going to make the boo-boo better. And what happens? It makes the boo-boo worse because the validation, when it comes, it's great. And when it doesn't, we spiral. And then we try harder and double down, get more validation and on. And then we get older, we get taller, but that thing never changes until we do this work, until we have a conversation like this, until Janine and Dawn and Michelle and Tony and everyone else, reflects and shares the reflection, because this thing is only healed through interactions, through connection like this. So we're not just having a conversation. We are, in a real way, by being open about this stuff, we are healing ourselves and one another. Okay, it's not a grand geyser, but perhaps it's a slow, quiet whisper of a healing. Patricia. Good to see you, Patricia. Thanks for sharing this very real story. Kathy, I got the message. You got the message, yeah. Be a good girl. Be a good girl. Still struggle with disappointing people when I put my needs first, but I do now, and it's been life-changing. Yeah. Be a good girl. That's the whole thing. Be a good girl. And, one person's notion of good girl might be different than, some people think they're being a good girl by never asking for help. Other people think they're being a good girl by helping everybody else. We all have our particular flavor of what being a good girl looks like. But boy, when we're invested, we are really invested to the tune of our life's happiness. Michelle used the word liberation. Yeah, that's what's at stake. Our freedom. Our freedom. Hi, Judy. Good evening to you. Just catching up. I appreciate everyone's comments. Yes. Yes. Isn't this interesting? Now, imagine how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people walk around like this. And I'm just going to speak to our culture. I know this show is broadcast all over the world, and different cultures may handle this differently. But in Western culture, certainly here in the United States, this is an epidemic. This is really an epidemic. People pleasing, turning ourselves inside out, being what we think other people want us to be. And the cost is our own authenticity. Our own authenticity. Think about that. Think about that. So another point I want to make about the inner critic is the inner critic is not the problem per se, but the inner critic is the boss of us until and unless we go in and reevaluate things, right? We cannot heal, and Brene Brown says this all the time, we cannot heal what we're hiding from. How could we? You know? And so when people call my office, they do so oftentimes because there's a crack in the armor. The mask came a little loose someplace, and they want me to help them glue it back on. And they're a little surprised at first to find out that we don't do that. But I can tell you almost without exception, I'd be curious if this is true for anyone in the chat, almost without exception, to a person, once they get through the initial sticker shock of, I'm talking about things I never talked about. You're asking me about what I felt humiliated about. I've never talked about that. Once they get past the newness of that, and they see that not only do I still accept them, and not only am I still interested in them, I'm interested in accepting all the more, because when they are vulnerable with themselves and with me, I can do the thing I want to most of all. I can touch them in a way. I can meet them where they're at. I can do the opposite of not getting out of the car. I can say, I'm with you. I can say, I'm here, and I'm not the least bit put off by your truth. In fact, I welcome it. And that's what's healing about the therapeutic relationship. So, still, Bill, years ago, you taught me to talk to myself the same way I would talk to my daughters. I remember that. I remember that distinctly. Yeah, I do. And I try to remember to talk to myself that way as well. But, you know, with all this and all the work I do and everything, it still gets past me sometimes. I go, oh, God, I could have had a V8, which means I could have had a better night's sleep. I could have had an easier day. I could have felt better about that difficult conversation I was going to have. But I try to have compassion for myself. Oh, this dies a hard death, these patterns. And I instantly go to little Kathy, young Kathy, and give myself some compassionate recognition. I still do it, and I suspect I'll do it until the end of my days. But you know what? It's okay, because it's not a pass-fail. It's not, oh, I should have been over this already. Do you ever say that to yourself? I should be past this already? Let me tell you, if there were a t-shirt and it said, I should be over this already, I'll tell you, the back of the t-shirt should say, not, because it doesn't work like that. Every time the memory comes up, or every time you're aware of the pattern, every time it becomes another opportunity to go in and do this little bit of work with you. When I say little bit of work, it's powerful, but you could do it just on the fly. Oh yeah, I'm doing that thing again. I lapsed back into being my own drill sergeant. I'm yelling at myself. I'm being brutal. I'm being cruel. I'm giving name calling. I'm cursing. I'm murmuring, mumbling under my breath, name calling. Come on. Come on. Let's treat ourselves the way Bill talks to his daughters. Okay? The way any of us would talk to a sweet, innocent child. Just Judy, I could think of a couple of recent conversations where vulnerability on the parts of both people made for greater understanding and closeness. Well, if that isn't music to my ears, Judy, I can think of a couple of recent conversations where vulnerability on the parts of both people made for greater understanding and closeness. Well, you know, that's the interesting thing on the parts of both people. How often do we, if we're going to do anything at all, like get real, how many times do we think to ourselves, the other person has to go first? You know, they have to throw the first card on the table. But actually, if you're listening to this show and you're attracted to this network and this kind of conversation, the fact of the matter is you have to go first and I have to go first. I can't wait for the other person. And then, you know, I can't wait for them to make it safe for me. I have to make it safe for myself. And my own safety net, and I submit yours as well, is the knowledge that what happened to you, what you experienced, all the knocks of childhood, all the traumatic events, all the disappointments were not your fault. And you handled them as best as you could with the resources you had at the time as an 8-year-old or a 16-year-old. And so there's where we give ourselves some slack and we have some compassion and empathy for ourselves. That's where we do it. So that becomes our safety net. I will land on my own feet because I know that as a little girl, I didn't do anything wrong and she deserved her mom's hug. And that's the end of it. So, you know, what ridicule can hurt me when I know the storyline and I know the truth? So that's my safety net. So I can be willing to get vulnerable before the other person. And in so doing, make the atmosphere a little more secure and a little safer for the other person. That's how both people benefit from a mutual vulnerability. But it starts with you and it starts with me. Time for one or two more. Still, Bill, I now remind myself that I've never lived before. It's my first time at bat and I cut myself a break. Oh, yeah, right. You've never lived before. Right. This is your very first and only life, well, on this plane as you are incarnated right now. So you've never done this before. No dress rehearsal. The curtain goes up. Here we are. And so this whole thing called life and growth and personal enrichment and authenticity is really a dynamic occurrence. It's not you do it, you get it right, and then you've arrived. You cannot apply perfectionism to this task or this notion. It's the relinquishing of the perfectionism and see where you fall and accept that as a reality. This does not mean you don't try to change and improve, but the energy on that, the spin on the ball, is one of kindness, not one of, hey, up 2, 10, hut. It's not that. It's a gentle kindergarten teacher, a loving, kind soul who says, I know you could do it. I know you could do it, Kathy. I know you can do it. You're a good girl, Kathy, and Judy, and Patricia, and Janine, and Michelle, and Dawn, and good boy Bill, and Tony, and anyone else listening. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. Yell at me if I... Oh, you see what I said? Yell at me. Don't yell at me. Just let me know, because I wouldn't want to leave anyone out. You see how reflexively we talk to ourselves? You see? So, dear listeners, wide receivers, let's be wide receivers of our own generosity. Let's be wide receivers of our own benevolence, our own goodwill, our own forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean, atta girl, good job for everything. It does mean that we did our best. And can we do better? Yes. But that's by invitation. It's not by coercion. It's by invitation. It's not by coercion. So as we go about our week and we have interactions, and we're mindful of all the things going on in the world, all the difficulties, all the heartache, heartbreak, atrocities, sadness, cruelty, bitterness, divisiveness. We can't wait for them to straighten us out. We can't wait for them to steer us around this iceberg. Each of us has a little wheel, you know, and we steer the course of our own ship by going out into the world and, you know, embodying these things, displaying these things. You know, we can't be all that here, and then we get in traffic and we curse the other person, or we're, you know, snippy, snarky. I mean, if we are, let's ask ourselves, you know, where's the stress coming from? Okay, you know, not hard to identify. But then remediate with empathy. Okay? That's our mission. Let's all decide to accept it. Okay? Thank you for being with me, for co-creating a conversation that I certainly loved. I hope you did as well. Meet you back next week. Not sure what the topic will be. It will be something organic. If you have an idea of the topic you'd like me to bring on the air, please let me know, Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. If I can help you with a referral, Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. If there's anything you want me to know, Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. All right, friends, be well, take care. Know that you are not only loved, you are love. You are love. So take that on the road this week. Be well. Love you all. Good night.